Good afternoon, Chairman.
Good afternoon and welcome everybody to Lincolnshire Schools Forum. My name's Gavin Booth and I am the Chairman of the Schools Forum. Welcome to all our members and officers in attendance today. Just to remind you, the audio feed of this meeting is being broadcast via the County Council's website, and I'd like to welcome any members of the press and public who are listening to our meeting today. Anyone that's invited to speak during today's meeting, please can you unmute your microphone and switch on your camera, and then please turn off your camera and mute your microphone when you're not participating. So if we can turn cameras off and turn microphones off if you haven't already done so, that just helps the connection stay strong. If you wish to speak at any point during the course of the meeting, please use the chat function and type speak as a comment. All officers and members are welcome to use the chat function. Request to speak will be collated by Katrina Cope, Senior Democratic Services Officer, and Rachel Wilson, Democratic Service Officer, will also indicate in the chat when a new item of the agenda has begun. If you have any IT issues during the meeting, please end the call by using the red phone icon and then rejoin the meeting using the link previously provided. If you experience connectivity issues while speaking, turn your camera off because that might help. And if you continue to experience IT, contact Simon Firth, the IT engineer, for assistance. If I'm made aware at any point that the meeting is not accessible to the public through remote means, or that members of the forum have lost their connection due to any technological or other failures, then we shall adjourn the meeting for a short amount of time to allow members to try and log back in. If the provision of access through remote means can't be restored, then the remaining business will be considered at a time and date to be agreed later. And if a date's not agreed, then the remaining business will be considered by the next ordinary meeting. So hopefully none of that happens, and hopefully we stay fully connected and it works all the way through. So I'll just go back to Trina and just to confirm the presence of members, please, and officers attending today's meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, members. Prior to the start of the agenda, can I please ask members to confirm your presence when your name is called? Amy Stanser.
Yes, I'm here.
Anthony Stevens.
Hi, Katrina.
Hi, thank you. Martin Kyle.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Ian Randall.
Afternoon, everyone.
Catherine Stratton.
Good afternoon.
Catherine Stratton. She was in earlier.
Technical issue. Good afternoon. Apologies.
Hi, thank you. Michelle Anderson.
Afternoon, everyone.
Rachel Barrett.
Hello, everyone.
Professor Durans. I've seen him.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Steve Barrow-Raneth. Seen him, I think. Yeah. Steve.
Hello.
There?
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. Francis Green. I think she may have just joined, so I'll go back.
Sorry, yes, present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Simon Pickett.
Good afternoon.
Daniel Callahan, just for the meeting, may be late, Chairman. Gavin Booth.
Yes, I'm here.
Katie Gravel.
Hi, everyone.
Simon Morley.
Yes, hello, everyone. Afternoon.
Leah Mason.
Yes, afternoon.
Dr. Stephen Hopkins. Dr. Stephen Hopkins, are you there? I'll come back. Helen Stokes.
Good afternoon. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Julia Merivale.
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Thank you. Martin Shelton. Yeah, I can see him.
Yes, here. Sorry, I was
No,
on mute.
all right. Oh, thank you. Can I just go back? Is Dr. Stephen Hopkins there,
Yeah,
please?
sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. Right, we also have the following officers present here today. Mark Popwell, Head of Finance, Children's Services. Elizabeth Bowe, Strategic Finance Manager, Schools Finance Team. Martin Smith, Interim Assistant Director of Education. Eileen McMurrow, Programme Manager, Special School Strategy, and Dave Pennington, Head of Property Development. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone participating in today's meeting that's not been called by Trina at all? Anyone lurking in the back rows anywhere? No, that's great. Okay, so we'll move on to the items on your agenda. So we'll start with apologies for absence and replacement members. So Trina, have we got anybody with apologies for today?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we've had apologies from Josh Greaves, Sarah Wilson and Paul Thompson.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So moving on, declarations of members' interest. Do members have any interest they wish to declare? If so, can you type speak in the chat for me? No, that's nothing to declare. Great. Right, moving on to item number 3, which are the minutes of the Lincolnshire Schools Forum meeting held on the 14th of January 2021. This item is to confirm and sign the minutes from the last meeting of the forum on the 14th of January as a correct record. So that's pages 7 to 16 in your agenda pack. I'd like to propose the minutes as a correct record. Do I have anybody that's prepared to second that for me? So if you can indicate in the chat if you're happy to second those minutes. Yeah, that's Julia Merivale's indicated that she's happy to second. Thank you very much, Julia. So it is therefore proposed and seconded that the minutes on the 14th of January be agreed. And we'll now have to vote on the minutes. So you're voting on whether you agree that the minutes are a correct record. So I'm afraid we're going to have to go down the list of names again and just ask whether you are for, against or abstaining around whether you are happy with the minutes. So back to you, Trina.
Thank you, Chairman. So if you can just, when I call your name, if you could just indicate for, against or abstain. So Amy Stanster, obviously you weren't here, so you'll be abstaining. So I can do that one for you. Anthony Stevens.
For.
Martin Kyle.
For.
Ian Randall.
For.
Catherine Stratton.
For.
Anderson.
For.
Rachel Barrett.
For.
Professor Durans.
For.
Thank you. Steve Barrowaneth.
For.
Mrs. Frances Green.
For.
Simon Pickett.
For.
Daniel. Oh, is Daniel there yet? No, he's going to possibly late. Gavin Booth.
For.
Katie Gravel.
I was absent at that meeting, so do I need to abstain?
Yes, that's.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Katie. Simon Morley.
Yeah, I think I was absent too, so we'll need to abstain.
Thank you. Leah Mason.
For.
Stephen Hopkins.
For.
Alan Stokes.
For.
Julia Merivale.
For.
Paul Thompson is absent. Martin Shelton.
For. Sorry, I think I was on mute again.
Oh, you're all right. So that's carried then, Chairman.
Brilliant. Thank you all very much indeed. If I just ask you to make sure you're back on mute again, and then we'll carry on with item 4, which is Chairman's announcements. So I'd just like to welcome Amy Stancer. So I don't know, Amy, whether you want to put your camera on and give us a wave. She's a nursery representative. This is her first meeting. Amy, there she is. Amy is replacing Joe Noble, who was the previous nursery representative. And just want to say a big thank you to Joe. I'm going to get that in the minutes as well, please, Trina, for all of her contributions to the forum. Joe's been a really strong advocate for the nursery sector, so I'm sure Amy will continue to do the same. So welcome, Amy. Nice to see you. And then can I also, since the last meeting, Penny Davies has resigned as a maintained governor representative. So again, I'd just like to pass on my thanks and that of the forum to Penny for all of her contributions during her time. And just let you know that there are 5 vacancies currently on the schools forum. An election will be held in due course to recruit to those vacancies. So again, if we can do our very best to feed back to our relative sectors, that we need to fill those vacancies as much as possible to keep the forum as strong as we can. Right, thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 5, which is a programme update on the building communities of specialist provision together in Lincolnshire, which is on pages 17 to 40 of your report pack. So we're going to have Eileen McMurrow, the programme manager for the Special School Strategy, and Dave Pennington, I think, head of property, to present this report to us. Can I just, before we move on to hearing from Eileen and Dave, just encourage members of the forum to use their opportunities to ask questions. You know, we have got the officers here and have put a lot of time and effort into producing these reports, so I'm sure they'll be interested in hearing your thoughts. And if you have any questions, and that's essentially what we are here, that's our function, is to ensure that we are asking those right kind of questions at the time. So I'll hand over to you, Eileen, and then we'll have opportunities for questions at the end. Over to you.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the forum members for welcoming myself and Dave back for the annual update of the Building Communities of Specialist Provision Strategy, or also known as the Special School Strategy, which is slightly snappier. My colleague Dave and I will take this opportunity to provide a summary of the report, highlighting the key milestones that have been achieved so far. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of the strategy as implementation this year, as with all of our activities, has been the impact of COVID-19 on the programme. Special school leaders have experienced unprecedented challenges and have rightly prioritised their COVID response and the safety of pupils and staff. The construction industry has been struck by uncertainty and instability affecting the supply chain and the labour market. And local authority officers and partners have had to find new ways of working to ensure the programme can be progressed and milestones met. But having said that, I think it's clear from the report there has been good progress made during this difficult period, with very few delays and an unwavering commitment from all key stakeholders to ensure the strategy is implemented as planned. So as you'll have noted from the paper, the most significant development of the reporting period has been the increase to the budget allocation for the capital programme from around 56 million to 86 million. Firstly, it's important to note the complexity and magnitude of this programme and appreciate the aspirations of the Council and its commitment to such a transformational scheme. Embarking on a capital programme which seeks to enhance and improve 13 special schools over a 5-year period, whilst transforming the supporting system to add much needed capacity, eradicate excessive journeys and reduce unnecessary out-of-county placements, is both ambitious and trailblazing. As the capital programme has progressed from initial assessments to live on-site schemes, it's been necessary to review the requirements of each scheme to ensure the Council is providing the best possible solution for schools and value for money. Building requirements have evolved over this period, and the Council has been presented with the opportunity to further enhance the programme scope through increased investment opportunities. Therefore, to ensure that the Council can provide every school with equitable facilities and resources to meet all needs, the budget required an increase based on actual scheme costs for those that have entered main works contracts, and also the forecast scheme costs on those that were still to be confirmed for post-feasibility. The Council has successfully accessed further investment for the programme with a revised grant allocation of just under 70 million, so all special schools in the programme will have improved capital solutions and enhanced facilities. In addition, the Council has agreed to commit 15.6 million to address the funding gap left by the unsuccessful free school application. After such a disappointing decision by the DFE, this allocation is evidence of the Council's unwavering dedication to improve the lives of children and young people with SEND through this strategy. It must be noted that some of the schemes have presented particular challenges due to the condition of existing buildings, and this additional funding will allow the Council to address these issues, thereby ensuring the sites are sustainable and have increased longevity. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Dave Pennington, who will now take you through a brief presentation detailing the progress of so far on the capital programme. If technology allows, I'll be able to share some pretty images as well, so you'll be able to see how things are going.
Thanks, Eileen. Hopefully the forum will be able to see the images that come forward. Excellent, there we go. All right, perfect. So what you're looking at here is Boston Endeavour Academy. This is a £13.2 billion project. And as Eileen has already said, the programme has been under extreme pressure as a result of COVID. But we are really pleased that working collaboratively, working together in partnership with our contractors, working together with Children's Services and the Academy Trusts. And this is a huge team effort. I don't think it can be underplayed. This is a massive team effort. We've only actually lost 2 days on this particular scheme this year, so we're anticipating that it'll be ready for September, delivering 140 places for this brand new state-of-the-art all needs all through school, which will also have a hydrotherapy. What you're looking at there, the top left image, is an architect's impression of what it'll look like from bird's eye view. You've got the car park in the bottom right-hand corner. You can see in the other 3 images, the school is evolving on site. So you've got the bottom left there, you can see the 2 stories going in. You've got a classroom bottom right and a classroom top right as well. So hopefully that's an illustration of works on site. If you could move on, please, Eileen. Next scheme we're going to look at is Bourne the Willoughby Academy. This is a £6.5 million project. It comprises a new build element, which you can see in the image on the top left there. That's 6 classrooms with a hall and some secondary teaching spaces as well. We're also doing some internal refurbishment also to some group room space as well, and just making certain parts of the existing school more suited to all needs all through. What you're looking at there, the image on the top right hand side and the image at the bottom there, is the craning in of what we call modular units. We're using a cutting edge type of manufacturing facility because the sites, both this and Spilsby, are extremely tight, very difficult sites to work with. So we actually had to use what's known as a modern method of construction to develop these modular units that are literally craned in, as you can see in the top right hand corner there. That allows for minimum disruption of sites, but it also allows us to construct under what otherwise extraordinarily difficult circumstances. So yeah, if we could move on to the next one, please. So next you'll be seeing Spilsby, the Eresby School. Again, very similar to Bourne that you've been seeing previously. We're expanding the capacity by 84 at this school. The new building elements, which you can see, all the 3 photographs show you the new build elements. Sorry, the top right is an architect's impression. That will comprise 5 classrooms, a hall, ICT and science spaces, and a small amount of group room spaces. We're also doing some remodelling to the existing school to, again, enhance the facilities there. We're looking at 6.5, just under £6.6 million project here, due to be complete this year, November 2021. Again, as you can see, progressing well on site, and you can see again these new modular units that we're using again, which specifically for this type of site because it's very constrained. If we can move on, Eileen, please, to the next slide. Okay, we're looking at Louth St Bernard's here. Again, early works, early days. So the bottom right-hand image is an architect's impression of the new block that we're putting there. So this will be complete in August 2022. The new block will comprise 6 classrooms, a hall, again, ICT, science and design technology, and small group room spaces, as well as some other spaces too. We'll be remodelling parts of the existing school, again, the library, and again, small group room and other spaces. Budget for this is 8.76 million, and as you can see, the foundations, again, very early days on this, but the foundations are being poured in that photo on the top left, and site clearance has started. Okay, we'll move on to St Christopher's in Lincoln. So this is a combined primary and secondary school on 2 different sites. What you're looking at there, the top image, this is a combined project, 22.6 million. The image on the top there is the new primary school, which you're looking at. It's just off Usher Road, if you know Lincoln. So the primary school will provide 130 places. Again, all needs, cutting edge and a state-of-the-art facility with a hydrotherapy as well. We're anticipating that this will be complete in early 2023. The secondary school it also is a combination of remodelling and new build. That will provide 203 places that are all needs and is aiming to be complete in September 2024. What we're actually doing there at the secondary site is we're knocking down very poor, I mean, as Eileen's already said, all of the sites where we're looking at remodelling the existing schools and knocking down and rebuilding all the existing infrastructure, the existing schools are in quite poor condition and require significant investment to bring them up to speed. And that's what we're doing at all of the sites, including St Christopher's as well, where we're remodelling. And that will, so the new build will include a new block with a hall, science and technology space, including PMLD and general teaching space as well. And if we just come on to the final slide. This is the Priory School in Spalding. This is we're expanding the capacity here by 135. So we're looking at an architect's impression of a new classroom block that has 9 classrooms in it, which will cater for life skills and social recreation spaces and small group room spaces. We're also remodelling parts of the existing school to provide an ICT suite and other spaces as well. This is a project that's 7.83 million and we're due to complete in September 2022. Again, as Eileen's already said, this is an extremely ambitious and highly complex programme. that is defined by collaborative working from the supply chain through to all the organisations from LCC and working with schools and academy trusts as well. And despite COVID, we are extremely proud of the work that we've achieved to date and looking forward to completion. 4 sites being completed this year and other schemes coming online later this year to be completed over the coming years as well. So on that note, I'll hand back to Eileen.
Thank you, Dave. Has that finished presenting now? Can you see me again? Thank you. So thanks very much, Dave. Thanks for the summary of the capital programme and how it's progressing so far. The supporting systems around the development of the strategy have also progressed significantly. It's probably worth noting, in particular, the school reorganisation policy, which you can find on Appendix B of this report. This collaboratively developed policy has been approved and implemented, and its purpose is to provide a formalised approach to the revenue funding of special school reorganisation in supporting the local authority's statutory duty to provide sufficient special school places. The policy has already been applied to Boston, Endeavour, Willoughby and Earsby as they begin to come on board, both in terms of funding arrangements, the start-up costs and pupil placement, working with the CENTE managers and the school to identify children and young people coming through with new EHCs, but also those who live closer than their existing special school to be able to transfer to the new school. £2 million funding has been earmarked to support the implementation of the strategy in special schools to provide all needs education. And this will fund loose furniture and equipment for 60 new classrooms in accordance with the aforementioned policy, and all of the new building space through the SEND Capital programme, such as the installation of new sensory and soft playrooms, medical intervention spaces and specialist teaching facilities. A further commitment of 143 has been agreed to support the workforce development for the sector, and that's due to be rolled out to mainstream schools soon. We're optimistic that that will be in place sometime between September and December of this year. As the LA receives lagged funding through its high needs block for the special school places, it's likely that the council will apply a blended approach to funding the growth in special schools through remaining earmarked funding and the high needs block funding during this growth period. During 2021, 38,000 has been drawn down for new classroom spaces in line with this policy. As the programme is still in its implementation phase and no school is fully opened as all needs yet, it's projected that the majority of the spending will be from next year onwards. The strategy for children and young people with social, emotional and mental health now forms part of the high needs strategy for Lincolnshire, led by Mary Meredith, Service Manager for Inclusion and High Needs Transformation, and therefore won't form part of this update going forward. In order for all schools to be all needs operational, the support systems of workforce development, health and SEND design must be established in readiness for implementation. These work streams have made significant progress in the last 12 months. The Health Memorandum of Understanding has been approved and is ready to be established in each school as they begin to meet all needs. Workforce development model has been approved and is due to be implemented to benefit staff in special schools by the end of the year. And the Specialist Community-Led Panels prototype is due to be launched this term. In addition, all special schools have joined up to the Lincolnshire contract for specialist equipment, and all this progress has been made against the backdrop of COVID-19 uncertainty and an environment where priority has had to be given to educating children in a safe and secure environment amidst the global pandemic. Thank you very much for your time today on behalf of myself and Dave, and I'm sure we'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Eileen, and thank you, Dave. If you've got any questions or you'd like to speak, please can you indicate that in the chat? Start watching eagerly.
Yes, please.
Is that Ken? Have you got something you'd like to ask?
Yes, please, Chairman. I first of all would like to say thank you to everybody concerned with this enormous project, and it's a very good report. Referring back to the minutes where it warns us that in 2022 and 23-24 we may have a budget deficit, I assume from the report that we may have to move money to the high needs block from other blocks in order to pay. But we've got over 500 new SEND places, and the cost is very high, but of course the revenue costs will also be high. But it does look as though we might be being warned, as it were, that the IDs block will need further support. The other thing too, which I would like to ask, is that we have 201 children at the moment out of county, and I assume from the report, because it does refer to all needs, that we shall no longer, when this is fully implemented, require out of county places. Thank you very much.
Certainly, I'm more than happy to address those, and I think fundamentally the response to the questions are quite similar for both, because the two tie in very much together. The aspiration around the 500 special school places also includes the potential for bringing children back from out of county places. So we do have children in our out of county provision where it's absolutely the right place for them to be, but we also have some children in our out of county and independent provision who are there because of capacity challenges within the existing system and simply would much rather be at a school nearer home. So what we're ambitious is that there will be an offset effectively. What we're reducing in the cost of out of county placements, we will then be able to make the high needs block more sustainable to then meet the needs of the 500 children.
Brilliant, thank you. Can I just invite Mark Popper? Mark, is your point relating to that?
Hi, Gavin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Yeah, no, it is. Yes, that's right. I mean, Ken, you make a valid point in terms of the financial challenges with the high needs block, and obviously the challenge to secure sustainable funding, and not only within the spending that we're incurring, but also about government announcements on future funding levels, which is a level of uncertainty following a recent consultation. In terms of the block transfers, obviously that's not something the local authority has sought to do, but clearly a number of local authorities across the country have. So that will be an assessment that we'll make at the time when we're reviewing our budget requirements. But like Eileen has said, there's a huge transformation agenda taking place across a number of SEND projects, of which this is one of them, where we hope that actually we can deliver better value for money for the pounds that we're receiving, both on the value based on out of county children being brought back, but also about step downs from special to mainstream as well, and so we have set some ambition within our budgets in terms of and noting that there is going to be continued growth within the EHCs, but actually we hope that the transformation agenda will help support that. So there's a number of strategies there to try and assist with sustainable budget sort of ambitions, of which this paper is obviously part of that. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Can I just invite Simon Pickett, please?
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you both for a very impressive report. I had a couple of questions. I did have Ken's question as well, so I apologise. My understanding from reading through this, and I may have misunderstood it, and I apologise for that, is it still 11.5 million short of, there's a 53% increase in the cost to the current running cost, and that it was now appeared to be about 11.47 million short. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. There isn't a funding shortfall. The uplift in terms of the schemes was 33%, not 53%. So no, there isn't a funding shortfall.
Sorry, 53% original cost. Yeah, half the original cost, which is a 2/3 funding, a 33% increase.
Yes. Sorry, but no. The funding, the 86 million. We are obviously. You can never say absolutely never, but the position at the moment is that the 86 million will cover the cost of the scheme.
And just thank you very much for the report. It was very helpful in the talk through to get the amount of cost for each of the projects, it would have been very helpful to have that in the paperwork broken down by the number of additional places and the cost of each project in the original post. But otherwise, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Ian Randall, please.
Hi, thank you again for the report. I suppose I'll take this from moving away slightly from the money from a school point of view. You want the places to be filled because that's going to generate the revenue, bearing in mind 500 places, 201 out of county, which some of them will move over. Mark's just mentioned about the fact about projections based on average number of EHCPs. I suppose because of the capacity in these schools, has anyone done a projection on when they will be filled? Because obviously you don't have a natural number on roll for special schools. And ultimately, is 500 places enough? Or is this going to come up as another question shortly?
Yeah, certainly. So, absolutely take your point. It's that principle of you build it and they will come. The demand and pressure on special schools is significant. At the beginning of the project, as part of the initial review, a full projection was undertaken over the next 5 years period. Unfortunately, we can't go ahead or back any more than 5 years, obviously because of births and health records. But projections have been undertaken and a 10% flexibility built in. Obviously, that also does acknowledge that where we stand at the moment, there are no special school places and we are under significant pressure. I think a sort of reference back to Mark's point as well, it's about more than being a sort of a one-pronged approach. So it's not about just building special schools and then filling them with places, but actually about the transformation across the whole of the SEND system. So reviewing the ways that we can support mainstreams better to maintain children in mainstream schools for longer, look at more at children seeing special schools as as an intervention for a time period. Some children absolutely need to be in special schools for a long period for the duration of their education. And for some, it's about a time period and managing effective transition back. Projections have been completed. We're optimistic that 500 places is sufficient once we've got the right children in special school.
So just slightly picking up on that, with the right children in special school and also the 201 spaces for children that are out of county. I mean, it's going to be great to bring them back across. It's going to save money, but I'm assuming there'll be ultimately a discussion that moving them from the school they're in is actually beneficial for them.
Absolutely. The core of this strategy right from the very beginning is that no child would be forced to change school and that it will be around parental preference and parental choice. Equally, out of the figure of 201, I'm sure a very high proportion of those children are absolutely in the right place and in the right school. But for those whose parents feel that they are not in the right school or that they would rather they were in a special school closer to home, as part of their annual review process, we'll be looking at a supported transition back into a local school.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ian. Martin Shelton, please.
Yeah, hi. This probably follows a little bit from Ian's point, but I just wanted to raise for future consideration the impact of the growth in numbers on post-16 education opportunities within Lincolnshire, and particularly the authority's appetite to support growth bids for post-16 providers, which may be needed going forward. Because the supply chain through to GFEs and specialist colleges will increase. Just to note the point, really.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin. I think obviously for the purpose of this strategy, post-16 hasn't been addressed. No. But obviously it is something that is on the local authority and obviously on Children's Services agenda. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Just to let you know, there's a question in the chat from Steve Baragwanath, just asking, are projects currently underway on site projecting to be on budget, so that the projects that are underway, are they hitting targets?
Yeah, I can answer that one. And the answer to that is absolutely yes. All our projects on site are projected to be within budget. Just to give the forum a bit of confidence in that, in terms of estimating the cost of our projects, we also have a risk allocation that sits within those as well. That risk allocation is to cater for things unknowns, so unforeseen site conditions, for example. So whether it's contaminated land, whether it's hitting bedrock, that kind of thing, or finding asbestos that we didn't anticipate because you can't in some circumstances. So we are comfortable although also always remain cautiously optimistic, but we are comfortable at the moment that there is no significant pressure on the bottom.
Great, thank you. Martin Kyle, please.
Hi, so just a couple of questions. The first one, 2.1.3. So LCC have accessed further investment for the programme with a revised grant allocation of 69 million. Where is that from?
I'm just wondering whether I take this or Mark. Do you want to take this one?
Yes, Martin. Yeah. So it's a number of funding sources. When we embarked on the programme and did the sort of desktop exercise in terms of the evaluation of those costs, but during this period of time and obviously going through the feasibilities and acknowledging that to deliver our ambitions, the costs are going to rise, and to find the right solution as well. Bearing in mind, obviously, as Dave referred to, some of the conditions of the buildings were not as we had expected. So hence the revisions. So what we've been doing as local authority officers is pursuing a different funding streams, whether that's supporting academies with bids of SIF monies, of which we've been successful in that with the CIT Trust. We've also accessed the DFE Send money. So this is a new funding stream. This year is the 4th year of that, and it's the government's commitment towards future infrastructure in Send, and also the supply of school places. Clearly, the funding that's been provided is relatively small, and actually, I think the recent announcement for 21-22 acknowledges that more is needed. So the allocation is representing about 80% of what the prior 3 years allocations were. So that's reassuring. So we've obviously built in assumptions as well in future years for that. And then funding that we've received in terms of reviewing basic need allocations and conditions allocations as well. So all these are government grants that we receive and have to review and prioritise, not only in terms of basic need in terms of our mainstream, but also for our special as well.
And sorry, sir. Go on, carry on. I'll let you finish your point. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, no. And then just finally, obviously, we were left with a funding gap of circa 15 million. And that's where we then made representations to our executive members and was subsequently agreed a funding allocation to be within the capital programme earmarked for this. And it demonstrated sort of the business case very much about the financial sustainability of the high needs block being fundamental to that investment, and obviously having the right facilities for those children as well. And what that was, that funding was, it came from was actually a reallocation. So we actually had monies in the programme for potential future new schools within Lincolnshire because of demographic changes. And actually those had been pushed back, hence why we felt it was appropriate to reallocate that. So that enabled that 86 million to be secured for this programme.
Which is really positive. Is there any real impact on that then, or not? So are we saying basically it's gone from 50 something million to 80 something million, and actually as a sector, as an education sector, we're not feeling any impact of that, or are there any certain areas that might be feeling the pinch a bit more? Is it taken from other pots that could have gone somewhere else, or it's just come?
No, not at all. I mean, clearly it's a priority for Lincolnshire to deliver on this strategy. But as part of the funding sources that we receive, we obviously have to review them, prioritise them and assess need. And when we've reflected on basic need, clearly there is a basic need within mainstream, and all those are actually assessed at the same time as this to be able to then be able to identify where that is actually allocated, and that goes through a decision-making process in that. So at the moment, no, there is no.
Where's that money been allocated in the past?
Yeah, so it all comes down to priorities, and what we've faced in the primary sector, particularly starting in sort of 2012, was quite significant reorganisations, and that's where we had the primary policy. So you'll be aware across the county, really, particularly in the towns and cities, is that we had to expand schools significantly, or indeed create new schools as well. So there was big demand on our basic need requirements on that. What we're now facing is demands within the secondary sector with that, but not as significant because there was actually available places. So it's basically assessing our future sort of demographic projections and then determining how we then actually utilise the government funding that comes in. And it's all through our returns that we provide, and obviously the level of funding does vary from year to year and recognises the challenges that local authorities are under when it comes to demographic changes. So we look at it in the round.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. And there was just one final point, which was around, if you look at the 86 million and you take away the 15 for the free school allocation, that didn't happen. I think we're left with around the 69 million point. And my point was that's roughly like a 25% increase on the original cost of the project. Is that 25% increase across all sites, or is there a particular site that's gone up significantly?
I'll take that one. No, there's been a general increase across all of them. So what you're seeing is it's not one site in particular, but it is an apportionment across all of them.
What's that, Dave? So that basically every site has gone up by 25% from the original base?
No, not the exact figure of 25%, no. But to answer your question, what I'm saying is there's been a general increase across all of them. And it hasn't been a 25% increase across all of them. It's just been a general increase. I don't have the exact figure for all the individual sites to hand now, but I can supply that after if needed.
So in terms of your oversight of the project, is there one site that's taken a significant increase?
No, they've all, it has been an increase across the board.
Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Stephen Hopkins, please.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair, for the protocol, I can't use the chat function for some reason. So it relates to paragraph 6.6, where you talk about that tension between equality of places and clearly affordability, and that being a high risk. So I'm just interested in how you are managing that, how you're wrestling with that tension.
Sorry, if I could, I'm just going to reference the point, 6.6.
Yeah, it's the last sentence of 6.6, striving towards equality, but clearly there's an affordability challenge there. It's a risk.
Yeah, absolutely. So this references obviously the challenges that we have with some schools are, as Dave has referenced, and it relates to the previous point, that obviously some schools are not in the same place as others. So some have been fortunate enough to have had access to SIF bids and things over the years, and other schools have not been as fortunate around condition and things. So obviously we're not starting on a level playing field, but what we do have is a schedule of accommodation which sets out in line with Building Bulletin 104, which sets out exactly what each school should have. So therefore that is why some schools have a greater investment than others, because what we're doing is we're aspiring that all of them will reach the BB 104 Building Bulletin schedule of accommodation standard.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Right, next, Lee Mason, please.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say, as a school leader that's integrated into the project through both the capital work and all of the work streams, just want to say a huge thank you to Eileen and Dave and their teams, alongside all the other partners who are involved as well, for that continued collaboration and commitment to the project and its ongoing work for all of our children and young people across the county.
Thanks, well done, Lee. Francis Green, please.
I fully understand and support the drive towards local, high-quality specialist provision for all needs. I just wondered if consideration has been given to the potential of young people in other local authorities or neighbouring local authorities naming at annual review Lincolnshire specialist provision as that provision is strengthened and the quality increases, and whether that's a risk or an opportunity. Has that been included in the modelling process?
Yes, yeah, it certainly has. I think it's very much modelled in our school reorganisation policy as well in relation to the gradual release of places as opposed to a full-on release of places. So an example will be Boston Endeavour. We are going up to 100 places for the first port of call and gradually releasing so that we are assuring that the demand is leading the opening of the school rather than the other way round. So it's demand from Lincolnshire pupils.
Thank you. And secondly, if I may, a question, there's obviously significant workforce remodelling within the specialist sector, but has there been consideration about whether there'll be a knock-on in terms of workforce remodelling in mainstream as those places are taken up within specialists, so that the students with the highest needs in current mainstream provision, who perhaps aren't having their needs met as well as they might, whether that will impact on that support mechanism?
Yeah, it certainly has. I think probably the simplest answer is that the workforce development strategy, once released to all special school, the learning platform will then also be available both to mainstream schools and parents and carers is our aspiration. So yeah, that absolutely has been considered. It's also as well a priority within our high needs transformation work that Mary's leading. So it's a consistent theme to ensure that SEND is very much high on the workforce agenda.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Great. Can I just say a big thank you to Eileen and Dave there for that report, and please do pass on our thanks to your teams. As I sit here, I can see Boston Endeavour out of that window just there, and it's remarkably it's going to be amazing when it gets done. So hugely beneficial for all of Lincolnshire's children. Can I also just say as well a big thank you to forum members. I think that the questioning off the back of that report was excellent, and that's brilliant and exactly what the forum is here to do. So thank you for those questions. Right, we'll let Eileen and Dave disappear on and get on with their next jobs, and we'll move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is the school's broadband services. This item can be found on page 41 to 46, and Mark Popwell, Head of Finance for Children's Services, is going to present this for us.
Thank you, Gavin. Yeah, so in terms of the purpose of this report, it's to provide an overview of the current schools broadband services for all Lincolnshire schools and academies to the end point of the contract of October 2022, and to outline that direction of travel for securing broadband services from that point onwards. So just initially to provide some background to the arrangement. So the local authority entered into a broadband arrangement in November 2012 through a regional supported initiative, both for the corporate LCC and also the school's infrastructure. And this was known as East Midlands Public Sector Network, EMPSN. And the KCOM was the actual service provider of the broadband. So this decision actually brought significant savings both to Lincolnshire County Council in terms of their base budgets, but also to the school sector through this consolidated approach through the greater sort of purchasing power. And this was supported by Schools Forum in 2012. So what you'll know obviously from the prior report in January on central budgets, the local authority through the Central School Services block retains a central budget for schools' core broadband services, and that budget is just short of 1.2 million. And so one of the challenges with this going forward is that the change in regulations, particularly through the national funding formula, is limiting local authorities' flexibilities in how we support schools in these type of arrangements. So EMPSN is a local authority formed membership. It is not for profit company limited by guarantee. And the purpose of this company is about aggregating the demand and arranging for the supply of that broadband connectivity to public services. In terms of how it's funded, as I've referred to, it's funded through the Central School Services block of the Dedicated Schools Grant through the historic commitments area. Moving to the hard funding formula, the government are making changes with that, and they've allowed pre-13-14 decisions to be allowed to be funded through this historic arrangement part of the formula up until its end point. Thereafter, after the end point, we're no longer able to retain any available funding from that, which is October 2022. So in terms of the government's drive to create greater consistency across all local authorities, because obviously we all do things or have done things flexibly, and when we've had those remit, the government have been making 20% reductions in funding to our historic allocations, both in the last financial year and in this current financial year as well, as a drive to try and move these legacy costs out of the system. And these monies will be sort of reimbursed, sort of reallocated at a national level within the schools funding delegations. So Lincolnshire can meet the school broadband costs for 21-22, and we're confident that we can also meet the costs for 22-23, well, up to the end of the up to October 2022. Up until that end contract point on those core services, which has been one of the objectives and of which the Schools Forum supported a fund within the reserves to support that. However, with the allocation we've received in 21-22, we feel that actually allocation of reserves can actually reduce to allow us to get up to that end of contract. So in terms of this central budget and what it's achieved and delivered not only to schools, but also maintained schools, but also to academies, but it's achieved significant economies of scale and value for money. And it's also provided that resilient, secure, quality broadband service that is needed within the school sector to deliver, obviously, your education goals. And what we considered at the time of making that original decision was that the central contract was considered the fairest approach for all schools. Meaning that those schools would be financially disadvantaged by their location, because obviously broadband costs can vary across areas and the actual rurality itself. So moving on to the next page, I won't go through the benefits in terms of what the current service is, but I think it's worth members sort of noting some of those points. So nearly 300 schools, Lincolnshire schools, actually received this consolidated broadband offer through the central IT contract, with the remaining schools contracting directly themselves. For those schools, they actually receive a contribution for theirs based on our sort of standard costs within our existing contract. So that's where we're at now, and which will then expire in October 2022. It's now then reflecting on future arrangements from November 2022 and how we're able to secure school broadband services thereafter for schools. So clearly we're not able to retain a central budget, and obviously that's the government's direction of travel is very much a direct relationship schools have to have with providers, and a provider such as an IT provider for broadband services. That could be EMPSN or it could be another provider. So all schools will be required to meet the full cost, and I think that's worth noting from that point onwards, because the local authorities' funding reductions will cease. So therefore, that will be a new cost in terms of that base core level. Schools may, through the contract, have had additional upgrades, of which they'll be paying for that already within their existing budgets, but the core element will be a new cost for them. So the council is very keen to support schools continue to access this high quality, affordable provision and management services going forward, but within the revised arrangements. So a board has been established at a local authority level with the primary purpose to ensure appropriate provision is maintained, both for the council and also for the schools sector as well. And to help inform local authority officers in terms of decision making, we've engaged with the sector through various arrangements and avenues. And yesterday, the survey ended for asking for schools' initial thoughts and views on whether they would wish to seek service continuity, so through a united offer like what we have at the moment, or would wish to procure alternatives. This will then help in terms of the local authority frame a solution and to see whether actually there is that buying power, which will give the market confidence that when a procurement exercise is undertaken. But clearly the local authority feel that the sector solution provides that optimum outcome for both cost and service performance of what we've actually seen during this current contract. So the local authority will be looking to make a decision in early July of this financial year. And the reason being is because of the long leading time required, of which the diagram there details the various points of which we'll be doing to ensure a smooth and effective transition takes place. And this decision will be made by the executive as well. In terms of the activities of those key stakeholders, just drawing out from the council's perspective, whilst it's clear that some form of procurement will be required, it's not yet determined how that will actually look, and that's something that we'll be looking at the feedback from schools and using that to help us form that judgment. From a school's perspective, whatever the model is, EMPSN, the current deliverer, are here to provide a service. So they could either seek to retain continuity and have a direct relationship with the likes of EMPSN, or actually procure the service from directly themselves through market engagement and a procurement cycle from that point onwards at November 2022. And as I said, EMPSN, they are there in the market to secure and to support schools' continuity. In terms of, before going on to a conclusion, as I say, just to reiterate, the core cost will be a new cost for schools to meet from November 2022. Therefore, preparation will be important on that. In terms of the actual charges, it is prior to doing the procurement cycle, it's very difficult to determine, but financial modelling is taking place to try and understand that. But clearly the feedback from schools will be integral to understand potentially like the buying power. But in conclusion, obviously a resilient and secure quality broadband service is essential for schools, which is totally appreciative. And therefore, we're obviously keen as a local authority to support schools, have the right access to that platform to be able to then call off and utilise these activities. So that's the main purpose of the board in terms of instilling that process is deliverable. And then just drawing on the risk section as well, in terms of that major risk is obviously not having a procurement and not having broadband services in place. That's a risk. However, the procurement cycle there and the leading times will ensure that doesn't take place. And I think the one final point just to draw out is the actual costs themselves. What we've seen is a downward cost since entering into this contract, where we've been striving for greater efficiencies and upgrades into more cost-effective provision as the technology has evolved. And what we consider is that going forward, fundamentally, the price is going to be determined by how the aggregated demand is for the school sector, for Lincolnshire schools, and whether actually that collective buying power will provide the confidence in the market to provide more effective and more positive pricing. But fundamentally, that is one of the key points to reflect on, and something that we're hoping to receive feedback on schools through the actual survey. So in summary, it's to note the contents of the report, but also for the forum to ask to support the direction of the travel that Lincolnshire County Council are engaging in terms of the procurement cycle. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark. Again, if you'd like to ask any questions relating to this item, can you please indicate you want to speak in the chat, or put your camera on if you're having difficulty with the chat. Steve Baragwanath, please.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for that. The deadline for the feedback from schools, I think, was yesterday. Have you got any indication of how many returns that you've had?
Unfortunately, Steve, I haven't actually got that. It's through the central hub, but I can certainly try and find that out. And I think what we'd be keen to do is actually try and get full coverage from schools. Clearly, it's only an indication from schools in terms of their direction of travel or general views, so it's not a definitive decision. But I know we'll be keen to try and get as many schools participating in this. So we'll have I'll follow that up, and if it hasn't got the full coverage, then we ought to be going out and ask and following up with those outstanding schools.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have responded. We're very keen to remain with it, because speaking to my technical experts, they tell me that it's actually a closed, more secure service and protects us from things like cyber attack more readily than if we were just going to the open market. And actually, over the years, it's been a very reliable service. It's not something I've had to give a great deal of thought to. It's just been there and worked. So I'm hoping it will continue. So thanks for the work you're doing.
Thanks, Steve. Rachel Barrett, please.
Hi, thanks. Just looking at the timeline, it's that indicative cost that I suppose I'm concerned about. Are we looking that should be done by December 21? I know it seems like a long time, but in the world of academies and budgets, it's not for us to make any adjustments that we need to do.
That's a good observation. Yes, around once we've procured, we'll obviously know that pricing structure. So yes, there will be a lead in time on that. We have got some high-level assumptions in terms of what typical costs are at the moment. Obviously, we know that from our central budget, but we're in terms of setting an expectation. Then we may be compromised when actually the final cost does come. So it's something that we can certainly probably provide some advice to schools of indicatives, but very, very much just for financial planning purposes. But yes, you're right. Around that December time, when the procurement will be completed, we'll have should be having a definitive, and also then it'll be then for schools then to buy from that platform. So actually, what do you actually require as part of your broadband service? And as Steve mentioned, those add-ons as well, which obviously you do pay for directly.
Okay, thank you. Just as long as we can have as long as practically possible to make any adjustments that we need to. I think that's what I'm digging out, really.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, great point, Rachel. Simon Pickett.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mark. Thank you very much. I answered the questionnaire, but raised, and I think other schools would raise the same statement, that without an indication of the financial cost implication to the school, it's difficult to indicate whether or not you would stay with what I think was an excellent service for a very, very long time. Having received that from IMT commercials, which have been useful, I would change my view, and I think that might be worth considering when you read the feedback from other schools. Thank you.
Yeah, good point, Simon. Thank you. Ian Randall.
Hi, it was really a question about lessons learned, positive or negative, really, because this has been a 10-year contract over a period of significant change for schools with the academy agenda and things like that coming on. And I just wonder if would a 10-year contract like the MPSN one be considered again? Is there anything you've learned from that with the schools changing and moving away from it? I just was intrigued.
Yeah, in terms of the retention rates, the retention has been very good with just short of 300 schools in there. There has been many positives with this. I think the EMPSN are very good at what they do. They have been able to access additional grants, funding for upgrades of certain areas, so from government grants, but also taking advantage of latest technology. So always reviewing whether actually the broadband rollout nationally, actually there are more effective lines, that are stronger lines, more resilient, but also at a more effective cost as well. And moving schools onto that as well, or opportunities where bandwidth can increase. So, and what we've actually seen is actually the contract costs actually overall it decrease through those technology advancements as well. So for me, it's been an excellent contract from a financial perspective, but also there's been limited churn as well. There's been the good retention rates, which then demonstrate the resilient service that's in place with that. And for me, that can't be underestimated. We have had situations where schools have actually opted out, and has resulted in issues happening, of which and then wanting to return back to the core contract. So I would certainly say if schools wish to go off elsewhere, is that they consider all the risks and make sure that all those risks are managed. Otherwise, obviously, there's potential implications with that. But overall, the contract's been very effective, and that's where EMPSN are still in the market, and they're still in the market and keen to provide school services, not only to Lincolnshire, but also to other East Middle and local authority schools as well.
Thanks for that. I'll just add from personal perspective on top of that, I think it's important, obviously, that we get indicative costs as soon as we can, but I think it's important as well that we get more than just the costs, because as people have mentioned, and you mentioned it as well, Mark, there are a lot of there's a lot of safety in terms of being with the MPSN, in terms of some of the functionality they have and the systems that they use. And my concern would be that if schools just look at the bottom line of costs, yes, there may be cheaper services out there, but are those cheaper services less reliable and less robust than EMPSN? So I think we need to be a bit careful about when those indicative costs come out, about how do we share something beyond the bottom line with schools, so they really are able to have a good comparison with, if they're going to choose to go to BT or Virgin, whoever else, how do they really have an informed decision about, what the service they're receiving? Because I'm just thinking about some of our small rural primary schools that perhaps don't have a great deal of IT support or know-how, and how do we support them in making the right decision? Because like you say, if it goes wrong, it can cause an awful lot of issues for people that take a lot of putting right. So I think it's important that we see the full package, not just the price. Martin Smith, I've got as well, please.
Hi, Gavin. Thank you. Some of the points have been covered. I just wanted to sort of highlight what colleagues have said around the careful consideration of options, acknowledging that you would need the financials to be able to make an informed decision. But I am aware that we have had schools in the past who've used alternatives and maybe didn't consider specification or safety, and that led to a significant impact, which that colleague actually shared at the leadership briefings around the impact on the school. Obviously, recently at the leadership briefings, we did sort of provide some more information around specification and expectation, but all I would say from a layman's term, the assurances that I've seen from the EMPSN work is that the firewalls are multiple, the updates are multiple, and it's a live, breathing, secure system. That said, it is still an option for schools to look elsewhere. So, if that choice is going to be made, it just needs to be really well informed and advice taken moving forward, I would just suggest. But I won't repeat other colleagues' points. Thanks, Chair.
And back to Steve Baragwanath, please.
Just to share some information with people that adds to the comments that you've made, Gavin and Martin. My technicians have looked at the cost of moving away and providing some of the services internally that EMPSN all currently provide, and for each school it looks like about £12,900, including some initial hardware costs. It's £1,000 a year for firewall and VPN, £4,700 a year for filtering, and £600 a month cost for a leased line, which is £7,200. So I think when you add all those things together, coupling it with the risks that are attached with moving away, I hope all schools are returning their feedback, and we get the benefit of that big group procurement. That's me finished.
Yeah, totally agree, Stephen. That's the point I was trying to make in terms of, people that haven't got those experts on their staff. How are they being supported in making a really tricky decision beyond just looking at pounds and pence? So unless there are any more, Mark, sorry. Do you want to say something, Mark?
Yeah, it was just to add, really, within the actual paper itself, there's a section there detailing all the bullet points of the service benefits, and they sort of draw out those, the firewalls, the bandwidths, and the various connections that you can have to other portals as well. So I think that's provides you with the service as is, and obviously the continuity that EMPSN wish to provide. So that gives you some sort of comparison to make initially on what you're actually receiving. Clearly there are technical elements of that, but that gives you that reassurance and comparison.
Yeah, it's just getting that in the hands of the people that are making the decisions out there in those schools that haven't returned it. But so we're asked to note the content of this report and to support the general direction of travel, which is to continue to investigate this further and to try and come back with those indicative costs as soon as possible. If people are happy to agree with that, if you want to disagree, can you just put that in the chat for me now? Right, I think we're going to take that as people are keen to see this progress as quickly as we can, so that we know what we're doing beyond the that kind of cut-off date in October 22. Right, moving on then to item 7 on the agenda, which is the Academies and Trust update. This is on pages 47 to 50 of your report pack. Lizzie Bowes, Strategic Finance Manager from the Finance team, is going to present this report. Thanks, Lizzie. Are you there? We can see you, Lizzie. We're not sure if we can hear you yet. Still muted. Unmuted now.
Can you hear me now?
We've got you now.
Apologies, IT.
Go for it.
Good afternoon, everybody. So you'll recognise this report that we present at each forum meeting, providing an update on the number of academies and pupils in academies in Lincolnshire. The information in the report as at the 1st of April, with pupil numbers based on the October 2020 census. Since the last report, 4 primary schools have now converted to academy, and they are Stamford the Bluecoat, Pinchbeck East, Spalding Primary and Surfleet CN Primary. The table at the bottom of page 47, continuing on to page 48, details the current status of all Lincolnshire state schools, and you can see that if we look at all schools together, 50.7% are now academies, while 71.6% of pupils now attend an academy. The second table on page 48 leading on to page 49 details the projections in 6 months' time should the current conversion process continue for those that are going to go academy. The middle of page 49 details the academy trusts that currently have the greatest number of academies and free schools in Lincolnshire, and you can see that the Community Inclusive Trust currently has the most, with 13 academies in their trust. The bottom of page 49 details the largest academy trusts nationally that operate within Lincolnshire, and you can see that the largest of these is the Academies Enterprise Trust, which has a total of 57 academies, 2 of which are from Lincolnshire. In terms of the risk, then the academy conversion process is fully understood and has been in place for a number of years. There are services that are funded either by the number of maintained schools and the number of maintained schools pupils, but funding levels for these services are reviewed as part of the annual detailed budget setting process. The split between the maintained schools and academies has no financial risk from the council from the dedicated schools grant, the schools delegation budget perspective, and the forum is asked to note the content of the report.
Thanks, Lizzie. And again, we'll just throw that open if there are any questions about that. Again, it's a report we receive on a regular basis. So, Martin Kyle.
Hi, just a couple of questions. So as you zoom in and you look at the primary sector and you look at the number of pupils in it, I think this was clocked by the chair last time, there's more primary pupils that are now taught in academies than are taught in maintained schools. And you might have covered this in your risks, Lizzie, but every time a maintained school changes to become an academy, does that impact on the local authority's income at all to conduct its services?
No, in terms of the dedicated schools grant that comes in, then and how we allocate that out to the national funding formula, then no, it doesn't, because when we calculate the formula, it's the same formula factors regardless of whether you're an academy or a school. We do have the some services that are really delegates that we discuss at the paper normally in October, but you'll recall that for the last couple of years, so that is based on the number of maintained schools, but for the last couple of years now we have kept that budget at the same amount. And then that service has had to then manage that slight reduction based on the number of people. So at the moment, we are managing those services through our normal budget setting process.
Does that reach a point? Is there a tipping point where that percentage of pupils that are taught in maintained schools makes that tricky to do. I'll just kind of note the pace. I can see what's happening in 6 months. I'm just thinking, say, if 95% of pupils are taught in academies and maintain schools, the remaining 5%, are they okay? Or should their school governors be mindful and be communicating and thinking about changes that they should plan afoot?
I think at the moment, I think it's something to say that is still manageable for quite a considerable amount of time in terms of those services that we provide.
Is that 3 years, 5 years, roughly?
I don't know whether Martin wants to possibly have a better idea on that, possibly.
I suppose it depends on the rate of conversions, doesn't it?
Absolutely,
It's a bit crystal ball gazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
It depends on how fast it goes. Sorry, Martin.
No, it's fine. So I think as a local authority, now and likely to be in the future, the expectation, with the exception of an inadequate inspection by Ofsted, would be that head teachers and governing bodies will decide and determine what, as and when they would need to academise. That's their choice to decide what they feel is best for their setting. We're neutral on the point. We would not recommend or not recommend academisation. You know, it's an option. It's a tool that you could do. And we're committed to, in the core team, still being there to provide that support to the sector-led model, to school improvement and championing outcomes for children and young people. And we'll manage the services that are funded through those budgets that are individually funded through the maintained schools. So no, and I think it's really hard to predict what the future will hold, because we tend to go with a number, then it steadies down, and then a few more schools may choose to go, but we can't anticipate what the national direction is, other than there's clearly going to be an ambition in the future to continue to see the sector-led model moving forward in whatever guise that takes. So hopefully that answers your question, Martin.
Well, I guess what you're saying there is, if you are the last maintained school standing, it doesn't matter. You can be, because you're going to get the support from the local authority. And if that's in 12 months, 5 months or 10 years, you can still be the last maintained school standing because the local authority is there no matter what.
Yeah, and exactly. And I'd like to think that the work of the local authority over the last 4 or 5 years has been very much around in it together for the benefit of children and young people. It doesn't really matter about the structure. It is about working together and collaborating. So, yeah, we would want to support both strands of that point that you're making.
I think that's really reassuring for maintained schools and for governing bodies as well with future decisions. And just one final question was around, you look at the diocese, how they've got a model where they've created their own multi-academy trust. And is that something the local authority might do at one point? I know they could only have 20% representation as a director or whatever else, but you've got the diocese who've created their own, the LAT. Would that be something the local authority might consider as well?
The current position, and the position that we've looked at a number of times over the last few years, is that there are plenty of multi-academy trusts in the area, noting that we've got an increased numbers of diocese and church faith-based MATs. So there is enough in the marketplace for you to choose, and it wouldn't be something necessarily that the local authority would be in a position or be able to do or to set up.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. So we're just asked to note the content of that report. It does say that, you know, to indicate if you disagree, but I'm not quite sure, Lizzie, what we disagree with. So I'm assuming that we're all happy to note that as a regular one. So thank you very much for that. So before we move on to item 8, I just want to say thank you to the people that have presented reports this time. One of the comments that came out of the last forum meeting was around the detail in some of the risks. And I think it's been really notable in the couple of reports that we've looked at today that has been fed back to officers, and they are including significantly more detail in those risks and impact analysis. So I just want to pass my thanks back to the teams for doing that. So on to item 8, which is the Lincolnshire Schools Forum work programme, which you can see in your pack from pages 51 to 54. That's just there for your information only. You'll notice that actually we've had a smaller number of reports this time, but actually a lot of those have been moved on to the June meeting because of various things that are happening in terms of elections and things in the council, but because of the timings of those. So there is going to be a significant number of items to discuss in that next meeting on the 24th of June. So it just remains for me to say thank you all very much for your attendance this afternoon, and particularly for your questioning and your interaction. I know it's not easy in this digital world and this online forum that we've got, but I think it's worked really well today. So thank you very much, and hope you have a great weekend when it gets here. Take care, everybody. Thank you.